What's up, guys? In today's video, we're going to be checking out a new plugin from Universal Audio called Sound City Studios. This plugin is pretty unique. It might be one of the first of its kind where it's actually modeling the room, the microphones, and the equipment that was used in a certain studio. I think one way to look at it is comparing it to what, reamping a guitar does as far as changing the tone and the sound of your signal. As far as Sound Studios itself, it is one of the most famous studios out here in Los Angeles. Nirvana's Nevermind was recorded there, as well as Fleetwood Mac's Rumors and tons of Tom Petty songs throughout the years. I think the best way to understand what this plugin can do is to actually listen. So let's get into it. Okay, guys, so here is the plugin right here. And I think the best way to start off is just to show you the different modes. There's re-mic and reverb, okay? Re-mic actually runs whatever signal you send through it, through the room, into the microphones, and then into, if you look over here, gear, if you'd like to, on the final master channel. So it's really, completely changing the sound of whatever signal you put into it. And in fact, if you look here on this mix knob, they don't suggest, and nor can you, make it a wet dry. It has to be the full signal going into this. Otherwise, you're going to probably get some phase issues. I suppose you could bounce one track and then blend it back in with your dry signal if you want, but it's not really the intended purpose of how the re-miking part works. Now, if you want just the sound of the room, you can switch to reverb, and then that's more like a wet dry thing. You can switch the solo mode off once you're in reverb mode and blend in the sound of the room with your dry signal. But moving back out to the main part of the plugin, you have drums, acoustic, guitar, vocals, and ensemble. And these are just good starting points in different rooms and setups that you can go into. So like here's the live setup for the drums, the tight setup, and you can see the corner setup. It changes where the mics and the drums are placed in the studio. Below that, you have three different choices of the different mic setup. For these close mics on this drum, you can pick a C12 and you see the mic switches to just a single mic, or a C414, which is two overhead mics basically. And what's cool is if you can go in here and you can raise and lower the mics just by dragging up and down. Then you have room mic 1, and then once again, you can use a 67, a KM54, or a 77DX, which looks like an RCA to me. And that just becomes a single mic, whereas the U67 is a stereo setup. You can also switch the polarity patterns on all these mics. So you could spend a good amount of time getting different sounds just by switching the mics and the placement of each and every single mic. Now, another way to adjust the settings of the mic is to open this mixer page here, and you'll notice it's the same thing. We have the close mics, the room mics, and the room mics too. This is where you can turn the volume up and down of the mics, which you can also do here. So it's just another way of doing it. But you do get filters here, as well as switching the phase here. And then it has this alignment section. And this is the distance between the different mics and the source. So, these are 3.3 feet. And if we move them up and down, you'll notice, and you can do it here or there, and you'll notice that it changes how high or low the mics are. Same here, the distance of the mics from the kit. Inherently, when you have two different sources and one that is further away, there will be a bit of delay. And that can actually be something you're looking for sometimes, especially in drums, where it gives it like a little bit distant, further sound. But if it's starting to sound a little flammy, which can happen, you can actually click this button and align it, and it will actually remove the delay that, naturally happens when you have this kind of setup. Lastly, you can pan, left to right. You can mono the source or left-right swap. And then this is the mix and the pre-delay, but this is only really used for when we are in reverb mode. Now, once you get the room set up the way you like it with the mics and all that, you can actually run it all through effects too. So you have this 3-band equalizer, right? Looks kind of like a Pultec style EQ. And if you want that to go below, you can actually switch the directions of these 3 different processors. The next module is Dynamics, but it also includes a version of the Dolby Type A noise reduction processor in it. This was an old school thing that was used to get rid of tape noise, but a lot of people used it to brighten things up as an exciter. So it works just like a compressor. It's a pretty straightforward. You can go to the amount of compression you want, and then you have a mix knob, sidechain filter if needed, and sidechain link as well. Now, the different modes, and I'm going to probably read these off the manual because I cannot remember them all. The encoder is a classic Sound City trick using Dolby A noise reduction system where the process is engaged on the input only. Then air is also known as the stretch mode, disabling 2 lower bands of the Dolby A reduction system and creating an airy, hyped multi-band expansion sound, often applied for vocals and solo instruments. And that's the one I was talking about. The air mode is what's been used a lot on vocals that you've heard throughout the years. Crush is a modified version of the Dolby A noise reduction system, coveted to a full bandwidth for an aggressive yet transparent response with a 4:1 compressor ratio. Then Gated places a gated effect in front of the Crush compressor for gated effects, and then Bus is engaged in the Sound City console's own bus compressor with a gentle 2:1 ratio and transparent auto release. Sounds nice. And then the last one is an 1176LN, which actually says there, just a classic UA compressor on a 20:1 ratio, so basically limiting, with a progressive change in attack and release controlled by the amount. And then the last module is a chamber from Sound City, and you can switch the mics here, your amount, pre-delay, width, and then of course decay time. So you can do a lot with this plugin as far as getting really, really different sounds than what you had on your source. All right, so we've gone over the basics of what all this plugin can do. Let's actually start listening to it and moving some mics around so you guys can hear it. This is a stereo drum file. It does suggest you run it through stereo source material. I think that's pretty self-explanatory because of the mics, it's stereo mics, so on and so forth. But I'm just gonna bypass this first so you guys can hear the drums as is, and then we'll turn it on. You'll be pretty surprised at how different the sound is. Okay, so there's a pretty big wow factor there. Like, that's a different drum sound. And this thing it was really cool. I must say this, I'm pretty blown away by this plugin and what it can do. Now let's tweak it around and mess with this a bit, and so you guys can hear all the different sounds you can get out of it. So that's just the overheads, right? Now we'll bring in this first room mic. So you can hear, we're just quickly changing mics around, changing the placement of the mics, and it's got probably like 8 to 9 different sounds that could be usable depending on what the song is about, There's ways to make this sound very focused in mono. There's ways to make it sound big and huge in the room. So a lot of different ways to tweak this stuff. Now, once we get something close to what we want, let's start with the preset here, which I love the preset menus of the newer UADX plugins. It makes it really easy to kind of get a sound. Let's just do clean room and see what this gets us. So you can hear when we switch to that preset, the compressor air band turned on. It's mixed in, obviously, but that just gives it a whole different sound that you can apply on top of just having a new room mic. Okay, so let's switch to something else. This is where I really felt I could use this plugin. It was on guitars and stuff like that. The drums are cool, but it really changes the sound, which is not something you always need to do. But this on guitars is sick, especially acoustics. So I get this little acoustic guitar loop. I'm gonna play it bypassed again, and then we'll turn it back on with the live acoustic setting, okay? I mean, just by putting the mics on, that acoustic guitar went from 0 to 100 like quick. So that's where I think this thing's awesome, is guitars. I put it on a percussion track for a mix a few days ago, and that just brought the percussion to a whole new life. And then even using it on electric guitars sounds great too. So here's the electric guitar, and you can go through, you know, cabinets or just like a PA. Let's check this out. Doesn't that just sound like what a guitar amp sounds like in a room? Like, it's really good. They did a good job with this. Okay, so on the last example, let's run it through a vocal. We'll run it through the Re-Mic module, and then we'll try it with just the reverb, just to hear how it can affect the vocal in different ways.
If I don't pick up the phone fast enough when you call, and I'm not jealous enough, hell, I've heard it all. There's only so many things that this boy can do. But you ain't leaving me, 'cause girl, I'm leaving you. If I don't pick up the phone fast enough when you call, and I'm not jealous enough, hell, I've heard it all. There's only so many things that this boy can do. But you ain't leaving me, 'cause girl, I'm leaving you.
So that sounds interesting. I don't think I'd actually use those settings for a vocal. But let's try flipping into the reverb section, which I think for vocals can be a little bit more helpful and effective. So now you notice I'm on reverb mode. I took solo off, and we'll just blend in the room sound with the original vocal.
If I don't pick up the phone fast enough when you call, and I'm not jealous enough, hell, I've heard it all. There's only so many things that this boy can do. But you ain't leaving me, 'cause girl, I'm leaving you. If I don't pick up the phone fast enough when you call, and I'm not jealous enough, hell, I've heard it all. There's only so many things that this boy can do.
So you can see we were able to turn off the equalization, the dynamics in the chambers, and that was just the room sound. But putting the room sound with the chamber and maybe a little bit of the dynamics, like the air mode with the Dolby noise reduction, can be a really unique sound that you can use and blend it in the reverb mode, which I think on vocals, at least in my limited experience with this plugin, I've only had it for about a week, tends to sound better than re-micing the vocals. Although I'm sure in certain situations, the Re-Mic would sound killer on the vocals. All right, guys, that was Sound City Studios plugin by Universal Audio. Let me know what you think of the plugin in the comments below. I think it's a unique plugin with a new direction that Universal Audio is going in, which I always like to see, because sometimes Universal Audio just seems to, you know, emulate stuff that's already been around forever, which they do a fantastic job of. But I like seeing them take an old room and making it new again by allowing us to use it in this unique way. If you need your songs mixed or mastered, hit me up at mixandmastermysong.com. You can also find my courses and presets there too. Talk to you guys soon.